Hello ladies. In this PowerPoint, I will talk about Chapter 9 in your writing book. It is about types of sentences. The objectives of this chapter. In this chapter, you will learn to recognize independent and dependent clauses, analyze different types of sentences, use coordinators, conjunctive adverbs, and semicolons to create compound sentences, use adverb clauses to create complex sentences, combine different types of clauses to create compound complex sentences. First of all, let's talk about independent and dependent clauses. There are two kinds of clauses, independent and dependent. And academic writers combine these kinds of clauses to create a variety of sentence types. Independent clauses, or an independent clause, contains a subject and a verb, and often a complement. A complement is a word or words needed to complete a meaning in a sentence. An independent clause expresses a complete thought and can stand alone as a sentence. Let's look at the examples. The sun rose. Water evaporates rapidly in warm climate zones. So in the second example here, we have water is the subject, evaporates is the verb, and rapidly in warm climate zones. Here we have a complement. Dependent clauses or a dependent clause is formed with a subordinator, such as when, if, that, or who. It also has a subject, a verb, and sometimes a complement. It does not express a complete thought and cannot stand alone as a sentence. So using dependent clause as a complete sentence is an error, referred to as sentence fragment. All right, so it can't stand alone, ladies. And here are some examples of subordinators and sentence examples. Let's look at them. When the sun rose. So this is a dependent clause. It cannot stand alone because it does not express a complete thought. Another example is because water evaporates rapidly in warm climate zones. And number 3, whom the voters elected for if the drought continues for another year. So as you can see, these sentences are not complete sentences, so they cannot stand alone. They do not convey a complete meaning, ladies. Here are a few of the most common subordinators that you can use in your sentences. And if you want to look at the complete text or the complete table, you can find it on pages 292 and 294. Kinds of sentences. A sentence is a group of words that you use to communicate your ideas. Every sentence is formed from one or more clauses and expresses a complete thought. There are 4 basic kinds of sentences in English, are simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. The kind of sentence is determined by the kind of clauses used to form it, and we will talk about each one in detail. Simple sentences. A simple sentence is one independent clause, so only one. Let's look at the examples. Fresh water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. Number 2, fresh water boils at 100 degrees Celsius and freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. Fresh water and salt water do not boil and do not freeze at the same temperatures. So notice here, ladies, in the second sentence has 2 verbs, and he boils and freezes, and it is considered a simple sentence. In the third, here this way is called a compound verb. Here we have a compound verb. In the third sentence, it has both compound subject and compound verbs, because here, look, I have 2 subjects, fresh water and salt water, and then do not boil and do not freeze. So I have 2 subjects two verbs. We call them combined subjects, compound verbs. All three examples are simple sentences because they have only one clause. One clause. A compound sentence, this is the second type of sentences. A compound sentence is two or more independent clauses joined together. There are three ways to join clauses: with a coordinator. For example, salt water boils at a higher temperature than fresh water, so food cooks faster in salt water. We can compound sentences with conjunctive adverbs. For example, salt water boils at a higher temperature than fresh water. Therefore, food cooks faster in salt water. Or we can join or combine sentences with a semicolon. For example, salt water boils at a higher temperature than fresh water. Food cooks faster in salt water. Sentences with coordinators. A compound sentence can be formed as follows. Salt water boils at lower temperature than fresh water, so food cooks faster in salt water. There are 7 coordinators which are also called coordinating conjunctions. We call them the fan boys: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Compound sentences with coordinators. Here is the list of fan boys. So we use for to add a reason. For example, Japanese people live longer than many other nationalities, for they eat healthful diets. And is used to add similar, equal idea. They eat a lot of fish and vegetables, and they eat lightly. Nor is used to add a negative, equal idea. For example, they do not eat a lot of red meat, nor do they eat many dairy products. Look here, nor is followed by a question form. But is used to add an opposite idea. For example, diet is one factor in how long people live, but it is not the only factor. Or is used to add an alternative possibility. For example, however, people should limit the amount of animal fat in their diets, or they risk getting heart disease. Yet to add an unexpected or surprising continuation. For example, cigarette smoking is a factor of longevity, yet some smokers live long lives. So is used to add an expected result. Doctors say that stress is another longevity factor, so try to avoid stress if you wish to live longer life.